What's up YouTube? This is Vekktone here, bringing you guys another FL Studio tutorial. Today we're going to be talking about EQ and mixing, and general tips on how to do those things. Before I get into it, I also wanted to say thank you guys for the views on my channel already. I've noticed my sidechain tutorial has got a lot of positive feedback, and I'm already almost at 1,300 views for that, and that's really awesome. I'm trying to get around to answering all your questions for the video. Bear with me, I'm still working things out and trying to help you guys as best as I can, but honestly, thanks a lot for checking that out. I'm going to keep making tutorials, and hopefully you guys will enjoy what I have for you. Also, I do have a podcast on this channel, if you didn't already know. It's called The Other Side, and I'm working with 2 other hosts to do that. So just go ahead and give that a listen if you aren't doing anything and you're already on the channel. We have a 5-minute preview that just talks about what the show is about, so go check that out. It's really awesome, and I would really appreciate it. We really want to get to know all you guys. But let's get into FL Studio. So right now, I'm just going to bring up FL. Here it is. Just open that up already if you haven't, and I'm just going to show you guys how to mix percussion in this thing. But, you know, it can apply to all different instruments, but right now, we're just going to be using stock FL instruments and samples. One thing that's really important when you're mixing is the mixer, obviously. I mean, it's the most practical tool you can use when you're mixing. And if you didn't know, mixing is not only about getting the volumes of all your individual tracks where you want, but also getting them to highlight or emphasize certain areas on the audio spectrum. And when I mix music, I use 2 things, and that's going to be my volume on each channel. So each instrument I'm going to have in its own track. So I might have a kick here. I'll have my snare, hi-hat, percussion, anything else, piano, I would have in another channel. Everything gets its own individual track, and that just allows you to mix it individually. Before you want to EQ things, and that's really important, don't get me wrong, but before you do that, you're definitely going to want to make sure everything's at the volume that you want. And you can adjust that by your scroll wheel on your mouse or just clicking and dragging the volume levels. So I'm just going to load up a basic sample here. Let's just get a typical pattern. I'm going to get my kick. Snare will load here. I'll get my claps at the same spot. And hi-hats here. And so now when I play my pattern, I should get something like this. And that sounds really good already. And if you guys didn't know, FL Studio has some really awesome stock samples, and with mixing skills, you can really highlight those and make them sound better than they normally would. And so don't feel bad if you don't have all these awesome expansion packs that you see other people using, or maybe even me. You can do a lot with what FL Studio comes with. So anyways, so right now, let's just listen to it one more time and really take a look at how things are playing together, and we can look at the mixer. So you can see everything is on its own individual track. Right now, I have the clap and the snare playing at the exact same time, so I can't really hear the snare when I play it. I can really hear the clap, and so we're going to want to bring that down a little bit. That way we can also hear the snare. And so that's one of the first things you want to do when you mix, is just make sure everything is at the appropriate level. So right now, we've established that we need to bring down the clap. So let's do that. And there you go. I just brought down the clap. I just made one small adjustment, and now you can really hear the snare. And the clap almost sounds like a reverb to the snare. And so that's what I want in this specific case. Of course, you might want to do things differently. Maybe you want the clap to sound really high. But, you know, when I mix, generally my highs tend to be really pronounced. And so bringing things down doesn't ever do anything bad, in my opinion. People always say that, or people always seem to think that you really want to mix and make things as loud as possible, which that can be true to an extent, but mixing things at a lower volume is going to save your ears in the long term, and it'll really make your mix sound better once you bring up the volume. So don't be afraid to come up here and turn that volume down, and mix with it, at half volume or something, and then bring it up as you continue to mix, and then work that out as you go. And then another tip that I have for you guys is that the headphones you use really does determine, or it can play a role in how your mix sounds. Like, I've only used one pair of headphones my entire career as a producer, and with these specific headphones, I've noticed that the bass is always way too much. And so when I go and I play it in something else besides my headphones, I can always hear way too much bass, and I'm like, whoa, why did that happen? It sounded perfect in my headphones. Why is there way too much bass here? And that's because my headphones are just bass heavy. So, if you're looking for a pair of headphones, try to get ones and read reviews that have really flat sound. But back to the mixing. So now, we're only using 4 instruments in this case, and you might have other things playing at the same time, but right now it sounds pretty good through my headphones. And so let's start adding EQ. So EQ stands for equalization, and FL Studio has a lot of different equalizers. It even has one built into each channel. Each channel on your mixer has a equalizer right here, and so you can use that if you want, but in my opinion, visual aid really helps you out when you're EQing. So let's go to our EQ. Just load up your plugins. Fruity has parametric EQ here, and it also has parametric EQ too. You can use either one, and there's even more. Like there's other EQs here too. Equo is another good one, and then I have some other ones down here that are third party, but my favorite is parametric EQ. And now when we play our tracks, we're gonna see on this little graph here where everything's hitting. So I'm gonna go ahead and play that. And so I have the EQ on my kick, so you can see if you look at an EQ in general, you're going to have this whole range of audio spectrum, and up here you can read it. You see low bass, bass, low mid, mid, upper mid, PRS, and treble. And so things that have more bass are going to show up more in here. Things that have highs, like your hi-hats, for example, are going to show up way in here, or if you're singing or vocals and it's like a female vocal, it'll be up here. Male vocals, like my own, would be in the middle area, but yeah, it's just this really helps because you can see where things are hitting. This EQ has 7 bands, so you can go ahead and drag them with your mouse, and you can drag them anywhere, and if you use your scroll wheel, you can actually adjust the curve of the EQ. You see how I'm doing that? And I can flatten that out or sharpen it up. You can also adjust that more fine-tuned with these adjustments here and this little fader. You bring that down. You can take your knobs up and down like this. Let's see here. You can adjust them left and right, and then this bottom one will do the curve, kind of like what I was doing when I used my scroll wheel. So let's assume that my kick needs more bass. So I'm going to go ahead and play my kick, and I'm going to use the visual aid to see where my kick is hitting, and then I'm going to adjust that accordingly. And so I've brought the bass way up now, and you guys can hear in the headphones that the bass started to get really heavy there. And yeah, that would be, this is a little emphasized in my opinion. I wouldn't normally put this much bass on a kick, but I'm showing you guys, what the EQ does. I can also take away the bass. Let's say my kick doesn't have bass, or I don't want it to have bass, and I'll just take that away. And now you can see it barely has any bass. And this kind of goes into side chaining, and if you guys watched my other tutorial, you'll know what I'm talking about. But I'll briefly explain it. If you have a bass line playing and a kick playing at the same time, they're both going to be hitting in this area of the spectrum. And so what you want to do is, they're going to both be fighting for that space. So you want to let one take up some, or you're just going to compensate the levels of each. That way they both have room. So when you sidechain, what you do is you actually automate the bass bands of your equalizer to duck down whenever your kick plays. So if I had a bass line, I would sidechain it to the kick. So every time the kick played and took up some bass space, the bass line of my whatever bass guitar I have playing is actually going to duck down and allow the kick to stand out. And so that really makes the mix less muddy. So if you're wondering why you have a lot of muddy area in your bass, that might be the problem. And you can look at my sidechaining tutorial for that also. But if you don't want to sidechain, and I have a bass line playing, you don't have to sidechain. Sometimes it's not even necessary, in my opinion. But you could just bring down your bass levels a little bit. Like, let's say this isn't even our kick, we're just bringing down our bass. Then we would EQ our kick and raise up the bass a little bit and everything. Or we could just keep it at a neutral level, and that would, take up the space that we took off in our bass line, and so that also helps clean it up. So right now, let's just take a look, and one other tip I have for you guys is to EQ all your instruments and all your percussion sounds, everything. Even if it gets tedious and annoying, you definitely want to EQ that. And the little adjustments really do add up in the end. Like, you really want to, even if it's like just a really subtle adjustment, those little details add up and allow your mix to sound a lot better once you spend the time EQing them. And, like I'm saying, even if it's just like a small adjustment, it really does help. So I recommend EQ for as much time as you have, honestly. And mixing really isn't that difficult. People seem to think that it's some difficult magic or something that it takes, endless time to practice, or it's like some secret that you have to have in order to mix good. But really, it's just using your ears and making the mix sound how you want. You're going to be doing the most listening to your music if you're a starting out producer or one that's trying to get off the ground, kind of like myself. The person who's going to be hearing the music that you make the most is going to be yourself. So why not make the music to your own liking? For me, I always enjoy listening to my own music, and I'm constantly listening to it and thinking, what could I do here? What can I improve on? So it's best to just not compare it to another song when you're mixing it, and just make it sound how you want. One other tip I have for you guys is that to listen to your track on as many different sound devices as possible. Like, listen to it in your headphones, listen to it on a speaker, listen to it in your car. I always like to burn my tracks to CDs and put them in my car stereo. I don't have an aux cord, but if you have an aux cord, perfect. Just put it on your iPod and listen to it in the car. Also, even listen to it in like really bad, crappy speakers like your Apple headphones or any sort of headphones you have, because that really does, the goal is to balance it across all systems. That way it sounds as the same as possible no matter what you play it in. And when you finally get good at mixing, it gets easier and easier to do that. And mixing almost becomes like a second nature, something that you do while you're making the song, and not something that you have to make your track and then say, okay, now let's mix. It's kind of like a hand-in-hand process. And so anyways, back to adding EQ. So I added it to my kick. I'm going to add it to my other instruments here. Okay, so now let's bring up some things, and I'm just going to go ahead and adjust it, and you can follow along. But I'm sure you guys get the idea of what EQ is all about, and what, this really does help. EQ2 is a great, great plugin. So now that actually kind of sounds like it doesn't have enough high to me. So what I would do is bring that up a little bit. And one other tip I have for you guys is the hi-hats seem to always be too loud whenever I mix. And even if they sound good in my headphones, when I play it like on a PA system, they always seem to just make the mix sound really clippy and gross. And so I always bring the hi-hats down like more than I think they need to be. And so, that is basic mixing. Now I've got my basic beat, and I'm ready to overlay some other things. And I know that was a really basic sequence, and there's not a lot of extra instruments going on, but I just wanted to show you guys the basics of EQ. And if you're a complete noob or you're just really starting out, this is definitely something you need to check out. And it's just fun to experiment with. You can even look at the other EQs. They are essentially all the same. This one's, it's a 6-band EQ, or a 7-band, I'm sorry, but it doesn't have the visuals as much. You can't actually see where things are hitting and where they appear. And so this is something you would use if you don't actually need that, or but why would you use this, in my opinion, if you can see things better here? But you could always download some sort of visual analyzer, and then you can watch that and also EQ with some other EQs. But I hope you guys enjoyed watching me, explain this. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. And if you want a really in-depth tutorial about, how to use EQ more, I would be willing to do that for y'all. Just let me know. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. And please don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. And don't forget to check out the rest of my channel. I've got free music on there for you guys. Vekktone.com is a great website for all my sources and everything I've ever uploaded. You can go to my website. It'll be right there. So thanks, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.